In 79 seconds, metadata timestamps from an FBI evidence database would prove that files were altered at midnight after a congressional subpoena, but before they were handed over. The cameras were already rolling. The Senate Banking Committee hearing room was silent, not tense yet, just waiting. Elizabeth Warren sat 3 seats from the chairman, a thick binder open in front of her. Reading glasses perched on her nose. FBI Director Kash Patel sat at the witness table, hands folded, microphone adjusted, water glass positioned within reach. This was supposed to be about financial crimes oversight, interagency coordination, standard budget review protocols. The gallery held maybe 50 people, banking industry reporters, congressional staffers with notepads, security personnel near the exits. The overhead lights cast sharp shadows across the polished wood table. A digital clock on the far wall read 3:28 p.m. Warren's turn came without fanfare. Director Patel, are you familiar with FBI case file FC 2023? Patel's eyes moved to Warren. His expression stayed neutral. Senator, I oversee a significant number of investigations across multiple divisions. I'd need to review the specific file to provide detailed. I'm not asking for details. I'm asking if you're familiar with it. Pause. 4 seconds. Patel's right hand shifted on the table. I'm familiar with the case designation system. Yes. Warren turned a page in her binder. She didn't look up. This case file was opened in November 20. It involved a financial crimes investigation into suspicious transaction patterns flagged by Fin. The investigation included subpoenaed records from 3 separate banking institutions. Are you with me so far? If this involves an active investigation, I may be limited in what I can discuss in an open setting. It's not active. It was closed in August of this year. Patel, his jaw tightened slightly. The case closure was marked as insufficient evidence to proceed. Do you recall the circumstances of that closure? Senator, case closures are based on prosecutorial assessment and evidentiary standards. I don't personally review every closure decision. I'm not asking if you reviewed it. I'm asking if you recall it. Patel's hands remained folded, but his fingers interlaced more tightly. I'd have to review the case file to provide accurate information about the specific circumstances. Warren pulled a document from her binder. She set it flat on the desk. This is the evidence log for case file FC 2023-84-1. It lists 22 separate documents that were subpoenaed, collected, and logged into the FBI's digital evidence management system between November 2023 and June 2024. She tapped the page once. Each item has a case number, a collection date, and a unique tracking identifier, standard protocol for evidence management. Do you dispute any of that? I have no reason to dispute standard evidence protocols. Good. Warren turned another page. On July 9th of this year, this committee issued a subpoena for all materials related to case file FC 2023-84-1. That subpoena was served to your office on July 10th. Do you remember receiving it? I don't personally receive every subpoena, but my office has procedures for congressional requests. Your office acknowledged receipt on July 11th. Warren pulled another document. This is the acknowledgement letter. It's signed by your deputy director. It confirms that all responsive materials would be provided within 30 days. Patel nodded slightly. That sounds consistent with standard procedures. The materials were delivered to this committee on August 6th, 3 weeks after your office acknowledged the subpoena. Warren removed a slim folder from her binder. When my staff reviewed the materials, they noticed something unusual. She opened the folder. Several of the documents had notations indicating they'd been recently modified. Not the content, just administrative fields. Things like case status, evidence classification, custodian assignment. That kind of administrative updating is routine as cases progress and are managed through our systems. Routine. Warren's voice stayed flat. So you're saying it's normal for evidence records to be modified after a subpoena is issued, but before those records are provided to Congress. Administrative updates don't alter the evidentiary content. That's not what I asked. Is it normal? Patel's breathing changed, slightly faster. Database management sometimes requires updates for accuracy and consistency. Warren pulled another page from the folder. This is a forensic analysis conducted by the Senate's Information Security Office. She held it so the projection screen behind Patel displayed it. It shows the metadata for the evidence log file your office provided. Metadata tracks every time a file is accessed, modified, or saved, along with the exact timestamp and the user credentials that made the change. Patel's eyes moved to the screen, then back to Warren. His expression remained controlled. According to this analysis, the evidence log file was accessed and modified on July 23 at 11:47 p.m. That's 13 days after your office received the subpoena and 14 days before you provided the materials to this committee. She set the page down. The modification was made from a terminal located in the FBI headquarters executive suite. Your suite, Director Patel. Senator, multiple personnel have access to executive terminals for legitimate case management functions. Warren didn't pause. The user credentials logged for that modification are registered to administrative account FD001. She looked up. That's your personal executive access account, not your staff's. Yours. Patel reached for his water glass. He drank, set it down carefully. The condensation left a faint ring on the wood. Executive accounts can be used by authorized deputies under delegated authority for administrative tasks. Can be, but in this case, were they? I'd have to review the access logs to determine who specifically made the modifications. I have the access logs. Warren pulled another page. This is the complete access history for that evidence file. Between July 10th and August 6th, the file was accessed 7 times. 4 of those accesses were from your account. 2 were from your deputy director's account. 1 was from a staff attorney in your office. She ran her finger down the page, but the modification that altered case status fields and evidence classification, that one came exclusively from your account. 11:47 p.m. on July 23rd. 43 minutes of active editing. Patel's jaw tightened. Without seeing the specific changes made, I can't speak to the purpose or necessity of those modifications. Then let me show you the specific changes. Warren opened another section of her binder. This one had colored tabs. This is a comparison document prepared by the Senate IT forensics team. It shows the evidence log as it existed on July 22nd and the same log as it appeared on July 24th. Side by side, she placed it on the desk. The projection screen split into 2 columns, before and after. On July 22nd, the case status for FC 2023-88041 was listed as active investigation pending additional evidence review. On July 24th, after your midnight modification, the status reads, closed, insufficient evidence. Warren looked up. The case wasn't closed yet. That happened 2 weeks later on August 7th. So why did you change the status before the closure was official? Administrative systems sometimes require pre-population of closure data to facilitate workflow processes. That's not an answer. The case was still active. You changed the record to say it was closed 2 weeks before it actually closed. At midnight. Why? Patel's hands unlaced, rested flat on the table, his fingers spread slightly. Case management decisions involve procedural steps that may not be immediately apparent from database entries. Warren turned to the next tab. Let's look at another change you made that night. On July 22nd, document FC 88041 0017 was classified as subpoenaed banking record offshore transaction ledger. Standard description. Clear. On July 24th, after your midnight editing session, that same document was reclassified as administrative reference material, non-evidentiary. She leaned forward slightly. That's not administrative cleanup. That's changing what the document is. Reclassification can occur when evidentiary value is reassessed during case review. But the case was still open. And you made this change at 11:47 at night after Congress asked for it. Patel's breathing was shallow now. Visible. Senator, I'd need to review the full context of the investigation to explain the reasoning behind specific classification decisions. The full context is that you altered 22 evidence records after Congress subpoenaed them. At midnight, Warren pulled another document.
This one was an email.
Internal FBI correspondence. It's dated July 18th, 5 days before your late-night editing session. She held it up. It's from a senior analyst in your financial crimes unit to your chief of staff. Subject line reads, FC 8841 subpoena response concerns. The body states, and I'm quoting, committee request includes materials that may reflect unfavorably on closure decision. Recommend review before production. Patel's counsel leaned in to whisper. Patel's hand came up slightly. His lawyer sat back. That email reflects standard due diligence in preparing responses to congressional oversight requests. Due diligence. Warren's voice stayed level but sharpened, or early warning that the materials might be problematic. 5 days later, you're in the system at midnight, changing those materials. Patel didn't respond. Warren turned another tab. Here's what else you changed that night. Document FC 8841004. On July 22nd, it was logged as Offshore Account Transfer Record, Cyprus Intermediary Routing. On July 24th, after your modifications, it became Duplicate Banking Statement, administratively archived. She looked up. The document didn't disappear from the log. It was just reclassified in a way that made it sound irrelevant. Why? I don't have the case file in front of me to explain the specific rationale for each classification decision. You don't need the case file. You made the changes yourself. At 11:47 p.m. on July 23rd, for 43 minutes, you were alone in the system, changing records that Congress had subpoenaed, making them look less significant than they were. Warren closed the binder slowly. So I'm going to ask you directly. Did you alter evidence records at midnight to avoid providing damaging materials to congressional oversight? That's an inappropriate characterization of routine database maintenance. Routine maintenance doesn't happen at midnight. It doesn't happen after you receive a subpoena. It doesn't reclassify offshore transaction records as duplicate statements or downgrade banking evidence to non-evidentiary status. Silence. 10 seconds. 12. Patel's eyes didn't leave Warren. The gallery was frozen. No movement at all. Senator, evidence management systems require ongoing updates to ensure accuracy and compliance with records retention policies. Name one policy that requires you to downgrade the classification of subpoenaed evidence at midnight, 2 weeks before you hand it over. Patel stopped, his mouth opened slightly, closed. His hands pressed harder against the table. I'd have to consult with records management personnel to provide the specific policy references. You're the director. You made the changes at 11:47 at night. You should know the policy. Warren pulled one final document. This is a declaration from Dr. Sarah Chen, the former head of the FBI's Evidence Management Division. She retired in June of this year. 1 month before your midnight editing session, she held the page at chest level. In this declaration prepared for this committee, Dr. Chen states that in her 19 years managing FBI evidence systems, she never encountered a situation where case status or evidence classifications were altered after a congressional subpoena was served. She describes it as, quote, highly irregular and inconsistent with evidence integrity protocols. Patel's breathing was audible now. Controlled, but audible. I respect Dr. Chen's service, but I can't speak to every decision made during her tenure or since. I'm not asking you to speak to her tenure. I'm asking you to explain why you did something at midnight that she says she never saw in 19 years. No answer. Just breathing. The air system hummed quietly. Warren gathered her papers, not rushed, methodical. This committee is issuing a subpoena for all access logs, audit trails, and modification records for case file FC 2023-8841 from July 1st through August 15th of this year. You have 72 hours. We're also requesting that the Department of Justice Inspector General investigate whether evidence records were improperly altered to obstruct congressional oversight. And we're asking for a preservation order on all databases, terminals, and user accounts involved in this matter. Patel sat motionless. His water glass sat untouched. Condensation pooled at the base. Warren continued without looking at Patel. In 2 weeks, you will return to this committee. You will explain why you accessed evidence records at 11:47 p.m. after receiving a subpoena. You will explain why you spent 43 minutes reclassifying 22 documents in ways that made them appear less significant. And you will explain why your own evidence management chief says what you did was highly irregular. The gavel fell once, sharp, final. Patel didn't stand, didn't gather his folder, just sat there under the lights as the room began to empty. His counsel remained seated behind him, but didn't lean in. The cameras stayed on. The metadata timestamps were already public record. The altered classifications were already documented, and 79 seconds of questioning had exposed exactly when and how 22 evidence files were changed at midnight.